This is every episode of SpongeBob that has scenes that were deleted from the show. And today, we're going over all of them, starting off with the episode Shanghaired. This one wasted no time, as the intro to this episode is often not found in reruns. The original episode starts off with Patchy the Pirate saying that he will watch his favorite episode. Then he gets launched out of a cannon by Potty. The extended version also shows the aftermath, with a burnt Patchy coming back with his usual positive attitude. And the line,
"Well, roll the cartoon."
Continuing into the episode, SpongeBob and Squidward's houses both get smashed by an anchor. In response to this, both of them, along with Patrick, climb the rope to find themselves aboard the Flying Dutchman ship. Now, this was no ordinary ship, of course, and was home to the Dutchman ghost, who tried to scare the trio. This fails miserably and earns Squidward a scorching, followed by a trip to the Fly of Despair. Now, in my opinion, this should have been the scene to be edited, but Nickelodeon decided that that was perfectly okay. He then curses the other two to a lifetime of service to him as his crew. SpongeBob and Patrick's plan was to help horrify the citizens of Bikini Bottom, but it doesn't go according to plan, leading to scenes such as this. Just as SpongeBob and Patrick start loving their new jobs, the Dutchman decides that he got enough of this run. He immediately informs the pair that he intends to eat them. They obviously weren't fond of this idea, so they escaped through the dreaded perfume department. Once they're successful, they steal the Dutchman's dining socks, as he doesn't eat without them. In the fight that ensues, the Dutchman poses a deal in exchange for the sock. He will grant them 3 wishes. Here's where the magic happens, as in the edited episode, the first 2 wishes are wasted, and SpongeBob uses the final wish to get out. But when Shanghaired had first aired, the 3rd wish was actually left up to the audience in a phone voting system. But that's not all, as there were alternative endings too. In one ending, Squidward gets the final say, and he wishes that he had never met SpongeBob and Patrick. This, however, backfires on him. In the other ending, Patrick wishes for gum as his final wish in a very classic dumb Patrick move. But while this was a good episode, this next one took the amount of deleted and altered scenes to a whole nother level, while also staying relatable. I'm talking about the episode Procrastination. This episode has not 1, not 2, but 3 deleted scenes. The episode starts with SpongeBob needing to write an essay for class, but he ends up getting distracted by his friends playing outside. Things only get worse as SpongeBob starts doing every other task except for the essay. Things hit a peak when SpongeBob enters a lucid state, suddenly seeing all of his possessions conspiring against him and his work. He watches as a flame lights up his house, burning the paper as well. Thankfully, he soon wakes up realizing that this was all part of a nightmare, but not everything was solved, as SpongeBob realizes that it was 5 minutes before class. He speedruns the assignment, making the deadline, but what he doesn't realize is that the class was canceled, and all of his efforts were in vain as the episode closed. Now, as relatable as all this was, what die-hard fans realized is that in the original, there were 3 scenes that were quietly scrubbed from the episode. The first one is when SpongeBob is distracted by his friends playing. In the original clip, there was actually a shot of Patrick rubbing sunscreen on Sandy's back. It was deemed suggestive and edited out. The second one is even more bizarre. When SpongeBob fantasizes about what would happen after he finishes the essay, this clip was shown. It was meant to be a joke for the running gag that SpongeBob always crashes when he takes his boating test. Apparently, it was this time that the editors felt that kids might reenact it in real life. But to top it all off comes the weirdest scene. In one of the tasks he does to avoid the essay, SpongeBob exercises, and it led to this scene. But this was also considered suggestive and had to be cut out. But in the end, SpongeBob thankfully got his essay done. But now, let's talk about the next deleted scenes in the episode Just One Bite. Just how far could one go to get a Krabby Patty? Well, Squidward's about to answer that in the deleted scene we're about to look at. The episode starts off like any other in the Krusty Krab. Squidward was, as usual, hating his job. He says that he hates Krabby Patties, despite never actually trying one. A loyal SpongeBob then tries to get him a Krabby Patty, and after some fighting, Squidward finally takes a bite of one. Squidward's opinion on the Krabby Patty seems to remain unchanged, as he angrily says that the Krabby Patty was the worst food he has ever eaten.
Krabby Patty may be the most horrible, putrid, disgusting excuse for a sandwich to have slither down my throat!
And buries the patty to its death. But when SpongeBob leaves being defeated, Squidward desperately digs up the patty and eats the remains. As the realization hits, he is no better than the rest of them and loves the infamous burgers. He wants to have more, but his pride won't allow him to admit his mistakes, so he tries to sneak one. This, however, does not end well for him. Luckily for us, this does not kill his hopes and desires. In fact, it will lead Squidward to have a dream about Krabby Patties as his wife, and most importantly, the cursed deleted scene. You see, in the edited episode, Squidward simply sneaks into the Krusty Krab and finds the patty vault. He gets his wish and lives happily ever after, but his journey was not so simple at the start. In the original episode, as Squidward enters the Krusty Krab, he gets flamed up by 2 buckets of gas as booby traps and security, but it was for a good reason, as this episode aired after one of the most tragic moments in history, 9/11. Nickelodeon did not want to use any explosions at that time, since it was a sensitive issue, but while Squidward played it relatively safe in his love for Krabby Patties, SpongeBob took it to a whole nother level in this next deleted scene. In the episode To Love a Patty, everyone knows how loyal SpongeBob is to the Krusty Krab and Krabby Patties, but this episode takes that idea to its absolute limits. It starts off with SpongeBob making a lot of Krabby Patties. He falls in love with one of them and ends up calling it Patty. SpongeBob genuinely believes in her and eventually brings her home. The pair start dating and doing ridiculous couple activities together. As the episode goes on, Patty slowly spoils, but this doesn't seem to bother SpongeBob, as he takes Patty to a date at the Krusty Krab. Everyone tries to talk some sense into SpongeBob, as the rancid smell was driving everyone away, but SpongeBob doesn't give in until he smells Patty, which seems to break the trance. He then realizes what he must do and eats Patty. While the general concept of this episode was innocent, there was one scene which would have changed everyone's mind. Originally, there was a scene where SpongeBob wakes up in nothing but his underwear next to the Krabby Patty that had bite marks in it. Luckily, the scene was deemed too suggestive and removed from the episode altogether. But both Squidward and SpongeBob's lives don't get any easier in the next episode, SpongeBob in Random Land. A token of appreciation is often good, but that's not what happened in SpongeBob in Random Land from season 12. The episode starts off with Mr. Krabs and his usual obsession with money. So when an order comes in from Random Land, a dangerous town where nobody can predict what can happen, Krabs sees a fortune waiting to be made. So he forces SpongeBob and Squidward to deliver the order, and so they begin their journey. The episode documents this quest of finding the customer in Random Land, all while witnessing just how random the place really is. SpongeBob and Squidward don't give up no matter the obstacle, and finally find their customer. But it wasn't before going through this scene. But this scene was never supposed to be this innocent. In the original scene, an appreciation of Squidward fan art came with this jump scare. Safe to say, a lot of kids were frightened by this, causing Nickelodeon to quietly edit it out of the reruns. But now, let's move on to the next deleted scene. In the episode Scaredy Pants, season 1 of the show was considered to be fairly innocent. That is, until the Scaredy Pants episode. That really scared some of the younger audiences. The episode starts with everyone taking advantage of SpongeBob, who gets easily scared. They nickname him SpongeBob Scaredy Pants.
That's just SpongeBob Scaredy Pants.
As he rushes home and even gets more scared by everything around him. Thus begins his quest to appear scary, but none of his tricks quite work. He then crashes a Halloween party, dressed up as the Flying Dutchman. People laugh at him when he fails, and things hit a breaking point when the real Flying Dutchman arrives. In his final show of anger, the Dutchman removes the costume from SpongeBob and sees him with his brain exposed. This horrifies the ghost, who understandably runs away as fast as he could. And as soon as the rest of the characters see it, they flee the scene too. But if you thought a far-off shot wasn't enough, the original episode had planned the camera angles very pretty differently. SpongeBob's costume was meant to be on full display, with close-up shots to capture how truly horrifying he was. But luckily, SpongeBob's production team decided that a far-off shot and an ending reassuring the audience that SpongeBob's skin will grow back would fix the issue. But hey, at least SpongeBob got his wish. While SpongeBob willingly shaved off his skin in the episode, Sandy had something worse done to her. In the episode, Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy, ranked as one of the worst episodes in SpongeBob history. This episode was unsettling to begin with, and yet fans didn't realize that there was a worse version waiting for them this whole time. The episode starts off with Plankton trying to steal a Krabby Patty from Sandy. When that doesn't go according to plan, he follows her into the tree dome. He then watches Sandy take off her astronaut suit, but it doesn't stop there, as she also takes off her fur coat like a suit. Plankton then steals this suit, which he wears to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. He successfully manages to convince SpongeBob that he is indeed Sandy, and SpongeBob begins teaching him various things around the kitchen. But SpongeBob is not a merciful coach, making Plankton do mundane tasks and waiting to get them perfectly right, all while Sandy is searching for the culprit of the missing fur coat. Just as Plankton got his hands on the formula, Sandy breaks in and makes Plankton surrender. But the original clip was somehow more disturbing than this. In it, Sandy was initially meant to be naked in the episode, and this led to a big plot hole in the episode. But the production team scrapped the idea, and Sandy got back her signature underwear. This wasn't the only deleted scene though, as Sandy had also covered herself up with a construction cone, creating an accident. There was yet another scene where she tried to buy clothes, but the manager kicked her out, saying no clothes, no service. Luckily, in all of these instances, Sandy does end up getting her suit back. But now, let's take a break and look at some deleted scenes from the SpongeBob movies, starting out with some deleted scenes from Sponge on the Run, the third movie of the franchise, and the production crew had a lot of experiments they wanted to conduct on the film. The film was set in motion as a result of one of Plankton's plans. He and Karen decided that SpongeBob was the reason all their plans failed. Meanwhile, in Atlantic City, the selfish ruler, Poseidon, uses up all of the slime from his latest sea snail, which is necessary to maintain his appearance. He orders the obtaining of a new snail, and Plankton kidnaps SpongeBob's pet snail, Gary, so that SpongeBob will no longer interfere with his plans. Once SpongeBob realized that Gary was missing, he swore to bring him back. Plankton was even so kind as to loan SpongeBob his robot for the journey.
Otto is your ticket.
And off went SpongeBob and Patrick on their mission to bring Gary back home. Without SpongeBob cooking Krabby Patties, the Krusty Krab's enraged customers trashed the restaurant, despite Mr. Krabs and Squidward's best efforts to stop them. Otto, Plankton's robot, drives SpongeBob and Patrick to an old western town, where they meet a tumbleweed spirit named Sage. He reveals to SpongeBob and Patrick that they are dreaming, and they must overcome a special mission to continue their search, giving them a challenge coin to grant them bravery. They enter a tavern by the ghostly zombie pirates and decide to free their souls from the evil spirit El Diablo, but Diablo traps the duo. They get out of the situation where Diablo is accidentally disintegrated from them. They even free other pirate souls, as SpongeBob and Patrick were woken by Otto. Now, accompanied by Sage, SpongeBob discovers that Poseidon will enslave him with the rest of his previous snails. When Gary Slime runs out, arriving in Atlantic City, Sage warns the pair to not be distracted by the city's attractions, but they ignore his last warnings. After a fun-filled night, SpongeBob and Patrick discover that they have lost the coin challenge that allowed them to be brave, but they nonetheless enter Poseidon's palace. Both are immediately arrested and imprisoned in a dungeon, where they try to take Gary. Krabs, Plankton, and Sandy all stage a rescue, and they end up becoming friends with the king. A cute story with a good moral in a fully animated movie. Or that's what Nickelodeon wants you to think. Originally, it was supposed to be a hybrid live-action movie, with King Poseidon being an actual human being. He was also meant to have dark black minions to corner SpongeBob and Patrick, but in this plotline, Poseidon kidnaps Gary to clone him, but Paramount rejected that idea. But it gets even crazier. What if I told you that there was a plot not under the sea, but with cats instead? Before the production production of the movie, the team was also toying with the idea of a science fiction approach, and giant cats were the villains. And it didn't stop there. There was another idea that involved the characters visiting a whole different worlds, such as a futuristic one made up of dolphins. But those were scrapped because Steven Hillenburg, the creator of the show, loved the more realistic plots, and so the team did what he would have wanted. There were other scenes directly from the movie. For example, the Camp Coral flashbacks were meant to be in the start of the film, not hiding the blatant advertisement for their recent show, but it was later moved to be further into the movie. That wasn't all, as initially, Gary's droppings could have been seen when SpongeBob was looking for him in his litter box. Overall, it's clear that a lot went into this movie, and it was overall a success. But now, let's talk about the next deleted scenes. In the episode Truth or Square, this one was meant to be the Krusty Krab's 117th birthday, airing as a special episode. But there was one line in a scene that would have changed how we saw SpongeBob before being quietly deleted. The episode starts with Patchy holding a TV extravaganza and waiting for SpongeBob. Once he realizes that SpongeBob is not coming, he gets on his boat and goes to Bikini Bottom Atoll. In an animated part, SpongeBob is getting ready for his usual day as a fry cook, except this time, he's extra excited because it was an anniversary for the Krusty Krab. Krabs make sure the security is tight before doing the event, while Plankton decides that it's the perfect time to strike. Soon after, the Krusty crew went into a freezer to get an ice sculpture that SpongeBob made for the occasion, but as soon as they went inside, the door shut behind them and locked itself. The gang tried to escape through the air ducts, and Plankton joins them. And also, Patchy the pirate gets eaten by a whale. Back in Bikini Bottom, the gang has a lot of flashbacks to everything that has led up to this point. While Plankton tries to overhear the formula, he gets thrown out, and Krabs' wallet is allowed to escape in order to get his money. They try to use a radio transmitter to call Sandy to come rescue them, but this startles Patrick, who destroys the transmitter. This leads to SpongeBob remembering that he once got married to Sandy, before being revealed to be a play.
SpongeBob, do you take Sandy as your lawfully wedded wife?
I do.
And Sandy, do you take SpongeBob as your lawfully wedded husband?
And how?
And here's where it gets interesting, because in the original clip, SpongeBob was supposed to say one line. As the priest says that he didn't know it was a play, SpongeBob says,
But it doesn't have to be.
and Sandy then slaps him. This was cut to ease any doubts that SpongeBob liked Sandy romantically, and Nickelodeon never spoke of it again. At the end of the episode, SpongeBob saves the Krusty Krab by singing a song, closing the episode for good. But while this episode spared SpongeBob from a lifetime of marriage, this next one spared him from a torture room. I'm talking about the episode Snowball Effect. This episode was meant to be innocent, just the characters having a snowball fight, but the original clip had one extra detail that would have turned a lot of heads. The episode begins with an iceberg floating over Bikini Bottom, causing it to snow. SpongeBob and Patrick immediately jump on the opportunity to have a snowball fight, and they try to get Squidward to join, but he turns down the offer, choosing instead to watch the fight in hopes that SpongeBob would get injured. But his words cause SpongeBob and Patrick to sign a peace treaty, infuriating Squidward. In order to get the fight to continue, he joins in, but it was clear that it was no joke to Squidward. When the relentless attacks feel too serious to the duo, they quietly sneak back to the pineapple to evade Squidward. Taking the opportunity, Squidward creates a full-blown fort called Fort Squidward. He gets into a lucid state, believing that he was still being attacked by SpongeBob and Patrick. Meanwhile, the duo relaxes in the pineapple as the episode ends. But what a lot of fans don't know is that originally, we were meant to see the inside of Fort Squidward. He had made a fully equipped torture room with a rack and even a guillotine. The scene never made it to production though, as it was considered too violent for the show. But now, let's move on to the next episode with deleted scenes, Sailor Mouth. This episode had a lot of controversy to begin with, as SpongeBob learns to curse, along with Patrick. But once the original recordings were leaked, no one could unhear it. The episode starts with SpongeBob getting ordered to take out the trash, where he finds a swear word written on the dumpster. He and Patrick decide that it was a sentence enhancer, and the next day, they use it everywhere.
Hi, Squidward. How the are ya?
Nice Hey, isn't it, Squidward?
All of the customers leave to go somewhere more family-oriented, and they finally learn from Squidward that there are 13 bad words, and the one they were using was the 11th one. This causes SpongeBob and Patrick to wipe their tongues and swear that they would never repeat it again. But as expected, this promise would be short-lived. Back at the house, the duo play a game of eels and escalators. When SpongeBob loses, he shouts the bad word. Patrick tries to go to Mr. Krabs and snitch on SpongeBob, but in the chase, he does the deed himself. They both tell on each other, causing Mr. Krabs to punish them by forcing to give the Krusty Krab a new coat of paint. But when Mr. Krabs gets hurt, he says all 13 of the bad words in one shot. This causes the duo, with Krabs following them, to go to Betsy Krabs' house to snitch on her son. Betsy faints when she hears so much cussing and scolds all of them. The episode ends with Betsy also swearing, but it was just a horn sound, giving them all a good laugh. The important thing in this episode is that every time one of the characters cursed, there was a dolphin squeal to cover up the word, but the voice actor in the original recording actually said these words. In a Gigaleak, these uncensored recordings have been fully released. Some fans actually edited the video part to match the audio, giving the full experience. But the next deleted scene on the list is from another SpongeBob movie, which, like in the previous movie, had a lot of changes, and the one we're talking about is Sponge Out of Water from 2015. This movie was a first of its kind, using CGI to animate SpongeBob, but it was initially never meant to use it, and buff SpongeBob was never even a thought. The movie follows another pirate called Burger Beard, who plans to steal the formula, the one thing that Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob have been guarding with their lives for decades. Plankton also makes an attempt to steal it, but just as he gets his hands on the bottle, it disappears. SpongeBob and Plankton escape in a soap bubble. As SpongeBob knows that Plankton is innocent, Bikini Bottom turns into a wasteland without the formula, and SpongeBob swears to bring it back. Time travel is introduced, and the duo meet a magical dolphin, Bubbles, overseeing the galaxy, but they accidentally get him fired when Jupiter and Saturn collide. After escaping that situation, they try to steal the formula from the past, only to realize that it was the fake that Plankton had planned earlier. Sandy suggests a sacrifice to the sandwich gods for Krabby Patties, and SpongeBob volunteers. As the town tries, SpongeBob mentions he smells Krabby Patties, which Mr. Krabs also confirms. The townsfolk follow the scent to the surface, and Bubble returns, expressing his hatred for his job and his gratitude to be fired. He thanks SpongeBob by allowing him and his friends to breathe on land to follow the smell. The team lands on a beach and discovers that the smell leads to Burger Beard's shop, which he had converted to a real food truck. The pirate is revealed to have stolen the formula using the magical book, which then he tries to banish the group to an island full of pelicans. SpongeBob uses that page Sandy had to transform himself and the others into superheroes. They find Burger Beard, who tries to run away, but they catch up to him. The team destroys the book during the ensuing battle, but Burger Beard manages to overpower them. Plankton ends up being the one to save the day. He had become a muscle-bound hero, attacking Burger Beard with SpongeBob's help. They get the formula back and send Burger Beard flying to Bikini Bottom. Using the final page's magic, the gang returns to Bikini Bottom. With the Krabby Patties back, the city returns to normal, and Plankton resumes his usual formula-stealing plans. But what if SpongeBob was never supposed to become a superhero? In retrospect, it feels like it went off track to what the show represents, instead trying to make SpongeBob into a parody of Marvel. There is a simple explanation to this though. Mr. Krabs' voice actor, Clancy Brown, once revealed that Paramount heavily restricted the production of the film. Initially, the movie was supposed to be entirely 2D animation, but Paramount wanted CGI sequences. They felt that CGI would be good to market, and this can clearly be seen in all the advertisements played during that time. But that's not all. They also removed almost every scene that involved Mrs. Puff and Mr. Krabs' daughter, Pearl. The executives felt that these characters were not as popular as Sandy, and so to give her more screen time, they cut them off. If that wasn't enough, the original film was also supposed to have a full song that they edited out in the final cut.
Oh, Monday! Thank gosh it's Monday, my number one day.
SpongeBob, in his usual cheery self, finds the silver lining in what's the most dreaded day of the week for many. But this song was cut, and the reason for it was never given. Speaking of deleted scenes, the movie was also supposed to have a callback to one of the show's jokes. It was none other than the Nasty Patty, the ones that poisoned the health inspector in one of the episodes. After the formula is stolen in the movie, SpongeBob should have created them as a result of forgetting what actually to do. In a desperate move, Krabs serves them to the refund-demanding customer. As expected, this did not go well, and the customers puke all over Squidward, but this scene was obviously removed on account of them being too gross. After all of these changes, audiences finally got to see the movie as it is today, but not even the first movie was spared from getting its scenes taken apart, as seen in the original SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the very first movie to start the SpongeBob film series, and perhaps the most beloved one of them all was this one. But despite that, this movie was sorely missing one of its key characters. The movie starts with Mr. Krabs opening a second location of the Krusty Krab, right next to the original. His fry cook, SpongeBob SquarePants, hopes to be promoted to manager of the new restaurant, but Krabs instead selects his co-worker, Squidward, explaining to SpongeBob that he's just a kid who is too immature to handle the position. Depressed, SpongeBob goes to the Goofy Goober ice cream parlor, where he and his best friend Patrick Star indulge themselves with ice cream, and wake up the next morning with a hangover. Krabs' rival, Plankton, initiates Plan Z in an attempt to obtain the Krabby Patty secret formula. He steals King Neptune's crown and sends it to Shell City, and frames Krabs for the crime. Neptune confronts Krabs about the stolen crown, and is convinced of Krabs' guilt. SpongeBob promises Neptune that he will be back with the crown. In order to ensure that SpongeBob keeps his promise, Neptune freezes Krabs and threatens to execute him if SpongeBob does not return in 6 days. SpongeBob and Patrick head for Shell City in the Patty Wagon, a Krabby Patty-shaped car stored underneath the restaurant. After the duo leave Bikini Bottom, Plankton steals the formula from the frozen crabs and uses it to sell Krabby Patties. He distributes free helmets with the Krabby Patties that brainwash customers into doing Plankton's bidding. This lets him take over Bikini Bottom, with Dennis as a hitman for SpongeBob to keep his position. After encountering a trench, Dennis, and a human diver on their path, SpongeBob and Patrick learn to behave like men. They even get a ride from David Hasselhoff back to Bikini Bottom. They reach just in time to save Krabs, but Plankton unleashes his slave army off on them. SpongeBob, embracing the fact that he's accomplished so much despite being a kid, uses the power of rock and roll to play the Goofy Goober rock song, freeing Neptune and the citizens of Bikini Bottom from Plankton's control. As Plankton is arrested by the police, Neptune unfreezes Krabs, who grants SpongeBob his wish to become the manager of Krusty Krab 2. Now, it's easy to see why this movie was so loved by the audiences. At the very start of the movie, we see human pirates, but there was somebody that was missing. Patchy the pirate and Potty the pirate never made their appearance in the movie. According to the showrunners, they felt that the intentionally low production of Patchy scenes in the show conflicted with the quality of the movie, and so they cut him out. He was instead replaced with Captain Bart the pirate. But there were minor changes to the movie too. In the Goofy Goober scene, SpongeBob was supposed to call the people attending to him as bartenders, but this was later changed to waiters so that it didn't get associated with alcohol consumption. But perhaps the biggest scene change is when the duo escape Shell City. Originally, they were supposed to meet Sandy, and she was an actual squirrel. This disgusts Patrick to the point where he vomits to express it. On top of this, Sandy was also supposed to have squirrel exterminators after her. Makes you wonder why Sandy wants to go back to land so much. Another shocking difference is that SpongeBob and Patrick were supposed to meet the human versions of themselves, but it was cut out for not being in line with the film. Speaking of SpongeBob's first movie, let's go back to his first episode, Help Wanted, because there's actually some deleted scenes in this. When SpongeBob finally applies for the job of becoming a fry cook at the Krusty Krab, with some encouragement from Patrick, he tumbles into the restaurant, but his neighbor Squidward is horrified and tries to get Mr. Krabs to reject him. Mr. Krabs takes Squidward's side and gives SpongeBob an impossible task for a very particular spatula.
Go out and fetch me a hydrodynamic spatula with, port and starboard attachments, and turbo drive. And don't come back till you get one.
Thinking they got rid of him, the duo try to get on with their day, but they get ambushed by anchovies. Mr. Krabs and Squidward climb onto a pole to get away from the mob of customers. SpongeBob returns, having fulfilled the task, and proceeds to serve every single one of them. This earns him the fry cook job that he prides himself on for decades to come. But not even the theme song was the same in the first making of this episode. SpongeBob SquarePants was initially meant to be called SpongeBoy Ahoy, and with that came this theme song. But intros aren't the only ones to be changed in the show, as the episode Graveyard Shift had an entirely different ending to the episode. Krabs isn't the only one taking advantage of others in this episode, as the original recording was meant to end with someone else, giving it a very different ending. The episode starts with a customer not getting the memo on the Krusty Krab's opening hours, but hearing the word money makes Krabs instantly open the restaurant to be 24/7. Squidward is not happy and finds his joy by playing around with SpongeBob's fears. Realizing that SpongeBob was afraid of the dark, Squidward tells him the story of the hash-slinging slasher.
At this very restaurant, the hash-slinging slasher used to be a fry cook, just like you.
But Squidward seems to never learn his lesson, as karma comes for him once again. 3 a.m. soon arrives, and the restaurant is now completely devoid of customers or any other signs of life, besides SpongeBob and Squidward. Suddenly, the lights begin flickering, though Squidward initially thinks SpongeBob is to blame. After realizing that nobody's touching the light switch, Squidward then blames the faulty electrical wiring, as the restaurant was not built to run 24 hours a day. Soon after, all of Squidward's stories start to come true. The phone rings with no one on the other end. A mysterious bus arrives and drops off a singular customer with a spatula for a hand. Getting scared out of their minds, Squidward and SpongeBob cling to each other. But when the person steps into the light, they realize that it was just a normal person wanting a job at the Krusty Krab. The lights flicker once again, but this time it's revealed to be a vampire named Nosferatu. They casually tease him as if it's a well-known habit to the Krusty Krab and staff alike. Smiling at the trio mischievously, he flicks the lights off once more, cutting to black and ending the episode. But this ending did not feature Floorboard Larry, the lost character in this episode. Initially, Floorboard Larry was meant to receive some mail from SpongeBob, and it was him who was flickering the lights. But the appeal of the character was not seen, causing him to be cut from the final episode. While Floorboard Larry was deleted from the episode, the same was about to happen to Krabs' parents in the episode Clams. Mr. Krabs is known for his obsession with money, and this episode was a highlight as he finally earned his millionth dollar. But the plotline was initially supposed to deal with death. The episode starts with a customer, under SpongeBob's suggestion, ordering coral bits for just $1. Then Mr. Krabs excitedly announces that this particular dollar is his millionth one earned. And after congratulating and thanking SpongeBob and Squidward, he says that they're going on a surprise trip to celebrate. Squidward guesses that they'll be going to special places, such as Fancy Springs, Palmer Island, or Bikini Bottom Folk Village. To Squidward's dismay, however, they go clam fishing in a boat called the SS Cheapskate on a smelly lagoon. While fishing, SpongeBob accidentally hooks the back of Mr. Krabs' pants, which he has taped the millionth dollar to, and rips it off. Once the dollar is thrown into the lagoon, the trio is warned about a giant clam that lives down there. SpongeBob frantically reels the dollar back on the boat, and for a few seconds, Mr. Krabs is happy that the dollar is safe. But nothing could have prepared him for what was going to happen next, as a giant blue-lipped clam suddenly jumps out of the lagoon, grabbed the dollar from Mr. Krabs' claws, and swam away. Krabs cries to Squidward, who agrees to get it back just to make him stop whining. The trio prepares a lookout, equipped with the necessary supplies. After 3 days, the clam is still not returned. SpongeBob and Squidward have grown tired of waiting, so they try to fool Mr. Krabs by giving him an ordinary dollar out of Squidward's wallet. The dollar was all crumpled up, torn slightly, and so soaked in the lagoon, and kissed up with coral blue 3 semi-gloss lipstick that SpongeBob used. Mr. Krabs sees through their scheme and states that he will give a sandwich to whoever retrieves the dollar. He goes as far as to toss the other sandwiches and the entire fridge into the lagoon, making the sandwich the only piece of food on board. Squidward and SpongeBob realizes that their boss has gone mad and try to escape, only for Mr. Krabs to catch them and use them as live bait for the clam. The clam finally takes the bait and advances towards the boat with Mr. Krabs' dollar lying on its tongue. Mr. Krabs jumps onto the clam's tongue and grabs the dollar, only for the clam to shut it in its mouth and dive back into the lagoon. SpongeBob and Squidward panic until Mr. Krabs' head pops out of the lagoon. He reveals that he and the clam fought until Mr. Krabs agreed to trade his entire body. The only parts left of him were his head and his left arm to hold the dollar. But 2 characters were added to the episode. In the original run, Krabs' parents were never meant to exist, being depicted as dead instead. But the production team later scrapped this idea, as really young audiences might not have been taught about death, leading them to ask these questions too early. His parents aired with the names Victor and Betsy Krabs. Speaking of death, Squidward's surgery scene in Dying for Pie can hardly be forgotten. In this episode, Squidward thinks that SpongeBob is gonna blow up and spends a lot of time with him in a pretty wholesome way. But that doesn't mean that this episode was all innocent, as one of the scenes had to be edited for being too gross. The episode starts with Squidward's hatred for SpongeBob. He comes into the Krusty Krab only to find out that it's Employee Brotherhood Day, a day on which all employees must exchange gifts that they've made for themselves. For his gift to Squidward, SpongeBob presents him with a sweater made out of his own eyelashes. Squidward rejects it, which makes SpongeBob cry, eventually leading to this scene.
Is this any better, Squidward? I made this one with my tears.
Squidward, wishing he could simply buy a gift instead of spending time making one, finds a group of pirates outside with a sack of pies. The pirates claim that these pies were bombs, but Squidward does not care and buys it. He then presents his supposedly homemade pie to Mr. Krabs, who gives it a taste test. He breaks off a tiny bit of the crust and goes to get milk. Tripping on his way, the crumb of pie explodes on contact and wrecks the back of the Krusty Krab, blasting Squidward and Mr. Krabs in the process. While Mr. Krabs believes it to be a purposeful attempt on his life, Squidward confesses that he bought the pie, ignorant of its continent. Back in Mr. Krabs' office, SpongeBob discovers the pie that Squidward had bought for him. Not noticing the huge hole, they rush back, only to find that SpongeBob apparently ate the pie. Mr. Krabs is disgusted at Squidward for his act, and accuses him of killing SpongeBob after all the nice things that SpongeBob has done for him. Having seen the situation play out 11 times prior, he further explains that the pie will explode upon reaching SpongeBob's lower intestine. He then predicts that SpongeBob only has until sunset to live before the bomb hits the explosion point, and says that he should enjoy his final hours. Being truly remorseful for his actions, Squidward decides to come up with a plan to make SpongeBob's remaining hours the most fun he's ever had. So he asks him what he wants to do the most. SpongeBob presents him with an extensive list of exactly that. He calls it his friendship list. This presents them with the exact bucket list that SpongeBob had. To make up for what he did, Squidward reenacts every single one of them, including having his chest open to let SpongeBob poke at his heart. The final activity SpongeBob planned is watching the sunset with Squidward. Remembering Mr. Krabs' warning about SpongeBob's death, Squidward nervously agrees to participate. He then builds a brick wall between them so that he won't see the explosion during the sunset. But as it turns out, SpongeBob had been saving the pie to share together and accidentally triggers the bomb. This explodes the entirety of Bikini Bottom in a nuclear explosion. So much for trying to censor firearms in SpongeBob. As if this episode didn't already deal with explosions, the scene where SpongeBob opens Squidward's chest was supposedly supposed to play out differently. Originally, SpongeBob was supposed to say, "Who's the doctor here, me or you?" The last part is important, as when his blood ruptures from Squidward's heart, SpongeBob plugs it up nervously with his hand. But this seemed to encourage the kids to try this at home, and so the edited version aired in the final cut. Speaking of doing questionable things for fun, this episode took fun to a whole other level, with the episode literally being called fun. The episode begins with business as usual at the Krusty Krab, until suddenly an alarm begins to blare, signaling an attempt by Plankton to steal a Krabby Patty. Plankton, Patty in tow, escapes outside by making a huge hole in the door with a laser. SpongeBob chases after him, and after a long chase across Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob finally recovers the Krabby Patty and is congratulated by the townsfolk. While Plankton walks home downcast, SpongeBob, feeling sorry for Plankton, decides to befriend him. SpongeBob invites Plankton to go jellyfishing with him. Realizing that he can take advantage of SpongeBob, Plankton plays along. With encouragement from his wife Karen, at Jellyfish Fields, Plankton remains fixated on evil and destruction, while SpongeBob tries to explain fun to him by singing a song.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me.
Plankton then seems to forget about stealing the formula and begins to develop a genuine sense of friendship. When Mr. Krabs sees this, he refuses to believe that Plankton has changed and sets up a trap for him the next day. He attempts to tempt Plankton with a Krabby Patty, but Plankton sits motionlessly with the patty in front of him. After SpongeBob and Plankton leave to go to the movies, Mr. Krabs begins to suspect that Plankton has gone straight and nice, until he realizes that he actually did take the patty. In an attempt to prove Mr. Krabs wrong, SpongeBob reaches into Plankton's pockets, only to find a Krabby Patty. Plankton attempts to explain that he realizes now that he only ever wanted friendship, before admitting to everything and running off with the patty through the movie screen, tearing it in half in the process. He is eventually caught, as there was only a concrete wall behind the screen as the episode closes. But in the original episode, there were a few dialogues that changed the nature of the story. In the jellyfishing scene, Plankton initially pointed his gun and said the line,
What happens after we
Shoot them.
SpongeBob is clearly disturbed as he says that. The reason for deleting the scene is obvious enough. SpongeBob's team are well aware that references to violence are not received well in the show. While this was understandable, the next one deleted is a unique theme song. In the episode, Whatever Happened to SpongeBob? The episode starts with SpongeBob walking up and greeting the mailman, but this simple gesture proves to be dangerous, as a truck runs him over. This alters SpongeBob's personality, causing him to be more clumsy. After a series of accidents around his friends, he is cast out after being called Idiot Boy. This causes him to feel guilty and prepare to leave Bikini Bottom for good. This journey is hard on him, and in one instance, he hits his head, causing amnesia. His friends are back at home to organize a whole search plan for the sponge. Meanwhile, SpongeBob wanders into New Kelp City, where he attempts to get a job. However, each time he gets a job, SpongeBob uses his bubble blowing skills to get him, resulting in him being fired. Back in Bikini Bottom, Sandy shows her friends her new invention that can track SpongeBob, the Sponge Tracker. Squidward, not wanting SpongeBob to come back, purposefully destroys the device with a hammer, claiming he dropped it. Krabs, in a desperate move, buys Squidward's loyalty by offering him a jeweled Furbet egg as a retirement gift, which would complete his collection. In Kelp City, things are taking a different turn, as SpongeBob's bubble blowing skills trapped a local gang, earning him the mayor position. His friends finally find him, but SpongeBob now calls himself Cheesehead Brown Pants. They also realize that he has amnesia and doesn't remember any of them. They bring SpongeBob back to Bikini Bottom, where SpongeBob is surprised at his previous life. His memory is finally restored when the Furbet egg falls on his head. The episode ends with SpongeBob realizing he's no longer welcome at Kelp City. He decides to stay in Bikini Bottom forever, much to Squidward's dismay. To keep up with the theme of the plotline, the episode initially had a very different theme song. Instead of the iconic one, it was called Who Bob What Pants, and it went like this. But it's assumed that this was removed for fear that it would mess with the brand, and so it never made the final cut. Well, weird things are expected out of SpongeBob. When Mr. Krabs tried to intimidate him, it led to the biggest controversy in SpongeBob history. In the episode Midlife Crustacean, the episode starts with Mr. Krabs feeling old as he struggles to get out of his hammock bed. He goes into his kitchen to find that Pearl has made him breakfast, and to make matters worse, she forces a huge huge pill down his throat. It continues to follow him everywhere he goes. Getting fed up, Krabs decides to join SpongeBob and Patrick in their antics to get back his youth. He even does the cool guy handshake and gets ready for a big night out together. At 8:01 p.m., SpongeBob and Patrick arrive at Mr. Krabs' house as a part of their fashionably late promise. Ready for the big night out, the scene then changes to them doing many other bizarre activities in various settings, such as at this highway, laundromat, dentist, roof redoing, and a game of Dungeons and Dragons in Old England, and the library, none of which have yet succeeded in remotely amusing Krabs. Krabs gets visibly more and more frustrated. At his breaking point, he angrily decides to cancel the night and go home, but Patrick tries to change his mind by saying that he will miss out on the pantry raid. This was an occurrence in which the trio will be invading a woman's house to steal her underpants. This changes Krabs' mind, and he agrees to go along. SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs arrive at a house and are successful in obtaining an unspecified woman's underwear. However, they are caught red-handed when the woman turns on the light and catches the boys in the middle of the act, revealing her to be Mr. Krabs' mother. As a result, Mr. Krabs is grounded for the remainder of the night and sent to his room. SpongeBob apologizes for what happened, but Mr. Krabs forgives him, as being in his old bedroom made him feel younger, finally getting his wish. It's easy to see why this episode got banned, and the idea of the three boys breaking into a woman's house to steal her underwear is hardly what SpongeBob is trying to teach. Fortunately for everyone, Nickelodeon buried this episode as best as they could. Now, that was every deleted scene in SpongeBob. If you liked this video, be sure to smash the subscribe button down below for more.